Godzilla 2014, the reboot from Warner Brothers and Legendary Pictures. Well, let me just say I'm a huge Godzilla fan. Have been since I was a youngling. And this movie is awesome! Holy crap. This movie's sick. You better believe it. Anyway, it's a standard Godzilla movie story. Some new monster awakens that's so powerful and threatens the whole planet. But then, oh, guess what? Godzilla's coming. It's awesome. You got your human characters that are usually less interesting than Godzilla, so that's standard. But in all seriousness, the human characters in this movie, while they are very generic, typical disaster movie characters, they're not bad. I gotta say, they're not annoying or. I mean, they don't seem. They seem like real people. Maybe not the most interesting people in the world to follow, but I really admired the director Gareth Edwards for his first movie Monsters. I thought that was actually a pretty interesting movie. A lot of people hated it because you only see the monsters for like 10 minutes total, maybe out of like a 2-hour movie. But I actually thought that movie was pretty cool. I like movies with a slow build because it builds tension. I think that's the best way to build tension. I mean, if you're bombarded with the monster for 2 hours, you're just like, all right, it's the same monster. So what are you gonna do that's cool? Oh, he's got a new power. That doesn't make any sense. You gotta be careful. Monster movies are a tricky thing to get right. I think only like. I mean, I can think off the top of my head, really truly great monster movies. There's only like a few that I can, that I thought were actually like really great. And I mean, it's hard because a lot of the time the monster's more interesting than the people. And you just hate the people, and you're like, well, when are they gonna die? When's the monster gonna kill them? Godzilla does a pretty good job of that. I mean, it doesn't have the most interesting people, maybe. I mean, there are some pretty good characters though. Bryan Cranston, I liked his character, and I kind of would have preferred if there was more of him because I thought he was actually probably the best actor in the movie, and I mean, he was like really acting his ass off in this one. And Ken Watanabe delivered a very interesting performance because his character had a very, I think, unique perspective on the whole Godzilla thing. Like, what do we do with this giant dinosaur? Like, do we just let him do what he wants? Like, is he worse or as bad as the other creatures in this movie? So I think it's pretty well known that Godzilla's fighting some other monsters in this one. Legendary Pictures made it pretty clear that they wanted Godzilla to fight monsters in this one because they were like, well, they didn't have him fight monsters in the last American one. It was Matthew Broderick and Velociraptor-esque baby Godzillas. I mean, the first American Godzilla movie, really, it just wasn't very true to the character. I mean, I hesitate to call it a god awful. It's god awful as a Godzilla movie though, and I mean it barely resembles Godzilla. I mean, he's got spikes. That's about it. I mean he's reptilian. But this Godzilla, this is it. This is the Godzilla I like. I think they did a fantastic job, and a lot of reviewers have been comparing this to the works of Steven Spielberg as well as to Ridley Scott's Alien, and they're pretty good comparisons because I mean there's stuff in this movie that feels like they're paying homage to Jurassic Park and Jaws and Alien, and it's actually tasteful, unlike a certain director that I think maybe could work on that a bit. But the movie's awesome. I mean, the scale, like the scale of these things is insane. Like more than any other Godzilla movie, they really make it feel like these things are massive and you should be terrified because they're freaking huge. Very little chance of survival when they're around. Mainly the things that Godzilla's fighting. Um, they have a very interesting take on Godzilla's character in this one. It almost reminds me of the Showa era movies. Some of the goofier ones, but but almost like a modern uh, take on that. Like it's interesting. He doesn't jump up and down and have like a victory dance, but he's not exactly like you know our out to punish us. He's not exactly that version of Godzilla. I think some people were maybe expecting the kind of Godzilla that just wants to kill everybody. It's a little different than that. I'm not gonna say what, but there might also be a reference to one of my favorite monsters of all time that is also from Toho. A certain monster that maybe flies. I don't know. Maybe makes a cocoon of some kind. I'm not gonna say. It's pretty obvious though. But I mean, the movie's awesome. I mean, the creatures that Godzilla fights, they're kind of like. I mean, they're not exactly the most original designs, but they look awesome. And man, like this movie was suspenseful, and the monsters were just they stole the show. I mean, what more can I say? It is it is maybe not the best story or the best characters uh, as far as the human element, but they're not bad. Okay, some people have been saying that they're bad. They're not bad. I don't even think they're boring. They're just maybe could have been a little bit more interesting. I mean, it's more of a military versus the monsters kind of movie. Maybe not military versus Godzilla. Not gonna say too much. I gotta be honest though. I would have been probably kind of bored if it was military versus Godzilla again, because they've done that in so many of the Godzilla movies, and where the military's weapons just do not work against Godzilla. It's hopeless. Yet they do it again, sequel after sequel. It's like why are you doing this? Nothing's gonna work. And then they bring up Mecha Godzilla, and it's like, oh, okay, all right. And but I don't know. The movie just worked for me. I love monsters. I love kaiju movies. Uh, Godzilla is probably my favorite movie monster of all time. I mean, he's freaking great. I mean, he looks awesome, and I mean, basically, if you had any fear about this being true to Godzilla, the classic Toho Godzilla, don't be afraid. This is true to Godzilla. This is about as true as it gets as far as an American movie would do it. I mean, this is awesome. Yeah, like the movie's sick as hell. I mean, what more could you want from a Godzilla movie? There's some Godzilla movies. Some people are saying it takes forever for Godzilla to show up and do anything. There's some Godzilla movies where Godzilla has like 5 minutes of screen time. Okay, Monster Zero I think was one of them. You know, no, I tend to prefer the ones that show a little bit more Godzilla, but I totally get what Gareth Edwards was trying to do. He realized that these things are more interesting from, when you're kind of like in a person's shoes, but you know what I mean? Like, you can't just show monsters the whole movie. That would be boring. You gotta have some human connection there. And it really is from the human perspective to where you feel like an ant during the movie. This movie is insane. It makes you feel so small. It's one of those monster movies. Like, I can't think of too many that make me just feel so small. I think Cloverfield did it really well. It made me feel like a freaking ant. But this one this one makes you feel small. Like, I mean, when they show Godzilla's foot and they show people next to it, it's like, oh, well then. So yeah, of course I loved it. I mean, I think this is like a 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10. I don't really have a spoiler section. There's not really much to spoil. But basically all your favorite, like, tropes from Godzilla movies are probably here. So if you like the formula of Godzilla movies, it's kind of in here. just sort of beefed up and with a sort of a Spielbergian vibe to it. And if that sounds awesome to you, which I think it's awesome, Steven Spielberg sort of movie mixed with a with Godzilla movie, you know, the things I like in Godzilla movies versus the things I'm not the hugest fan of. I think it works. I think it's sick. King of the Monsters.